mission at the heart of it is really theological, because according to our own approach to mission within the WCC, we believe that first and foremost, mission is God's. So we participate in what God is already doing in the world. That's the fundamental theological tenet, that we uphold. And so in that regard, we go into spaces not as initiators, but the word discernment that we use when we talk about reading the signs of the time, understanding what is happening during our time, and discerning where God is already at work, not necessarily through WCC structures, but through people of goodwill, through other initiatives that may not necessarily be WCCs, but also we ourselves then initiate as we discern, but fundamentally we stem from our belief in a God who cares for the world, loves the world, and has a purpose and a goal for the world, and so we engage with that. So the two need to always be held in tension. So there is a level of activism in the works that we do, in the name of mission, but it needs to be anchored in our faith, foundations. First and foremost, mission is God's mission, but also God is a God of justice. And God is devoted to those who are marginalized. And within the scriptures, we see in Jesus's life, the commitment, to the people that did not have voice. And so, in our reflection over time within the ecumenical movement, we have come, particularly in the WCC, to say that ecumenical missiology is mission from the margins. So margins have agency. It's not a question of the gospel going from one center to the other. The gospel is polycentric, and the good news must come from everywhere to everywhere. I think that has been affirmed variously within the history of the ecumenical movement. But for the WCC, particularly coming out of Arusha, in fact, before that, at the Busan Assembly in 2013, the document Together Towards Life defined what mission from the margins means. And that was augmented during the mission conference in Arusha, where we spoke about transformative discipleship. And within that, speaking about the renewal that comes, with the movement of the Spirit as we translate the message, as we, transmit the message, and as we transform, therefore. And that is not, doesn't have one center, it's polycentric, and the margins, particularly because they have been sidelined, for various reasons. And it could be economic marginalization, it could be, gender marginalization, but it could be also, I think in this time we need to think about epistemic, marginalization. In other words, who decides, what is going to be central in terms of, theological reflection. So going forward, the question then is how are we going to truly, position ourselves in such a way that mission is really from the margins. My biggest hope is exactly what I alluded to, the collaborative nature of our work. If we can build a sense of, collaborating across programs, like so in my program area, for instance, if we can have Faith and Order and the Commission for World Mission and Evangelism, being seen as two sides of the same coin. It's unity and mission, and also ecumenical formation to find synergies, the thematic connections in the way that we design programs, and find one another so that at implementation level, we are not working in silos, but we are working in a way, that is coordinated and is collaborative. And taking that also to member churches when we are, working on the ground in particular locations and regions to find ways that we will, make connections with what is already happening. So if I were to describe my personal approach, to leadership is to be collaborative. I believe that my role is one of coordination. And so I sit, as program director, to coordinate, the programs within the program area that I'm responsible for. But within those programs sit people who are very gifted and who are the content specialists. And the idea is to bring that content in such a way that it expresses one dynamic vision towards one goal. And I think the Assembly gave us a mandate that is going to has already underlines both the content and also suggests methodologies that we could use. The whole idea of connecting the global and the local, and also having working commissions, for instance, is the collaborative nature of our work going forward. I was already, as program executive for ecumenical theological education, connected to various member churches. And during the assembly, there were opportunities to meet some of the church leaders from various churches. So, relationships have, already begun. But at a strategic level, I think we need to make sure that in the work that we do, we are consultative, but also collaborative. And so, for instance, during this period when we are putting together commissions, it's not the work of the Secretariat alone. It's the work in collaboration with the member churches who actually nominate people to participate. And so through the people who come to the various activities of the WCC, the member churches are implicated, and through that we build connections and relationships. But there will also be times when we visit churches, when we hold particular events in particular regions. We cannot do that without being hosted by churches and honoring what the churches are already doing, which we could find common cause on, or find a fuller expression in terms of certain issues that are most expressed in particular locations, where our programmatic work may be more fruitful in terms of fulfilling the objectives that we discern for them. Within my portfolio, the transversal on youth ecumenical engagement is already working with youth, and we saw how many they were engaged in different spaces during the assembly. But also at BOSE, we have mostly the younger people who come to study there. And within the ETE, Ecumenical Theological Education Program, there are various programs, one of which was the Global Ecumenical Theological Institute, GETI, at which a number of young and emerging theologians attended. So continuing those threads that engage youths, and continuing to find ways in which we can build capacity for them to participate, not just in the activities that build their personal capacities, but also their capacity to participate in the ecumenical spaces, particularly the formal spaces. So that's going to be an important element, and that means formation is going to be part of what we consider to be embedded in every program, so that those capacities continue to be built, because I believe that there's a generational shift within the WCC, and we need to keep preparing the next generation that is coming in as leaders.